I found it. My dream job. I went to Moorpark College and learned the skills that earned me a new career in just 1 year. And now, I'm doing what I love and making more money than ever. Moorpark College will help you get back to work at a job you love. Enroll now and follow your dream to a new career. I found it. So can you at moorparkcollege.edu/CE.
Hi, welcome to Talks About. This is Marcus, and today I'm joined by Sarah with the organization Parents Who Fight. Sarah, thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So if you wouldn't mind, can you tell us a little bit about your organization and what it is that you guys do?
Sure. So we are based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and we started about 5 years ago simply as an effort to reach the neighborhood school that our children were attending. They were in elementary school at the time, and we had some concerns about what we were hearing, that kids were being exposed to pornography. So that's where our first focus was just really coming alongside parents and giving them some technical tools to put in their hands to protect their kids from adult content online. And we really didn't have the intention of starting anything, but we got so much positive feedback and so many referrals from that first neighborhood school meeting that other schools and churches started asking us to come provide some of that same information. So we have really focused on the technology piece of it, so far as I think parents have agreed that they really want to protect their kids from things online, not just pornography, but social media dangers or even online predation and cyberbullying. And I think we realized pretty quickly it wasn't a matter of, convincing parents to protect their kids. They wanted to, but there was just a really big gap in parents understanding how the technology worked, what inherent flaws they were up against that, kids have learned how to exploit because they're curious and innovative by nature. So we felt like our lane, more than really counseling parents about how they should parent or, seeking intervention strategies on the mental health side or anything like that. We're parents, we have other jobs. So we felt like what our lane was really just wrapping our head around the technology that kids were using and how parents could make those situations safer. So whether that's helping lock down their home or setting up, parental controls on an iPhone, or really just talking about best practices and sort of educating parents about what all comes with social media or gaming when they get there. So for us, we had started off at first really focusing on those elementary school ages, recognizing that the leap from elementary school to middle school is where a lot of the technology was really being introduced. And that was the age that our kids were at the time. Now, 5 years later, we have teenagers. And so we are definitely in the trenches, just working day by day with what technology teenagers use, how it can be safe, but also trying to help parents know what they can phase in as far as freedoms so that their kids really learn how to use technology well. So we're no longer just operating in our family as, this is off limits to you, but really what can we release to you and help you learn how to use constructively and not destructively, which seems like, an everyday tension that we're living in. But nonetheless, we just love to come alongside parents, whether that's educating in a school setting or a church setting or coming into people's homes and really helping them with the technology that they have in their home to make that safer for their kids.
And I'm sure a lot of what you run into is that, it's one thing if there's, if it's a boy and girl and they're 17 years old and they're exchanging, like raunchy messages or something like that. Like, I'm sure that's kind of a little bit of a different ballgame than some of the stuff that you've seen, which probably involves, like younger than that for sure. Like I mean, I've heard some tales, of even kids trying to like ask for, sexual type images from even younger kids. So you might have a person who's like 14 asking for something from a 11-year-old even. I've heard stories of that. And I guess, what do you do in a situation like that where, let's say the parent of the 11-year-old kid in that situation, they come to you and they say, hey, my son is playing, whatever, Fortnite, or he's playing Among Us or something like that. He's playing a popular video game and he's in one of these online chats, and, there's an older boy asking for this, or an older girl or whatever asking for this. What do I do to, protect my kid from situations where he's, asked for things like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think along the way, when they're young, you're, at an appropriate age, really instilling that that skill of resilience in them and teaching them refusal strategies. That is key before your kids are ever playing a multiplayer game. And so, unfortunately, a lot of parents don't even understand the way their kids might be connecting online, so they may not have been prepared enough to go there with that information. So for us, when a parent is coming in and it's like midstream, I didn't realize, and now this has happened, there could be a couple of different paths you could take. For one, it might be an issue that you seriously consider seeking some kind of law enforcement help. If there is a serious enough matter, definitely reporting something on Cyber Tip Line. That needs to be the gold standard in a home where parents and kids alike know what the Cyber Tip Line is. It's cybertipline.org. It's run by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And they, got almost 17 million tips last year. And those tips are actively being worked on, and they are seeking to find and prosecute offenders online. So that's a big deal. When kids are connecting online, of course, they don't always know if the person they're connected to is who they say they are. So it might be a classmate, and that is a stickier situation because it involves other parents, and whatnot. Or it might be, a child predator. And so you always have to take it very seriously when someone is reaching out to your kid and asking for those things. But then even, at the 17-year-old level, like you first mentioned, what we want teenagers to understand, and usually girls tend to be victimized in this way more than boys, but the statistic that we got from a great research study that Microsoft referenced a couple of years ago is that 90% of indecent images that are texted make it past their intended recipient. And if kids grow up knowing that this is statistically is never going to go well for you, even if you are, quote unquote, of an age where you, might think you are responsible enough, or maybe even society says, you're 18, you're a legal adult. It's really teaching kids from the youngest of ages, not just what is legal or illegal, but like really what is wise, what is healthy for you, and what is going to protect you from ending up with your photo stolen, photoshopped, spread everywhere. So there's a lot of things, to consider when it comes to the digital exchange of images or requests. But again, we tend to focus on the technological solutions. So we would help parents know how to block somebody on a gaming system or on Instagram or wherever the request has been made. We have lots of great referrals, a referral network in our city that we can, send parents to who need to get law enforcement or the school involved, whatever the case may be. That's not something that we would lead. That's really above our pay grade, but we have all of those resources to let parents know, depending on the seriousness of the issue, kind of what their next step might be. And we have come across a lot of really troubling situations. As you mentioned, we hear of things that happen younger and younger. And unfortunately, even when we first got started in this space, one of the stories that really compelled us to continue to pursue helping parents was a situation with friends that happened with, an exchange of images, and it ended up in in-person exchange, and it ended up in a suicide attempt, and it ended up in residence treatment for very, very young children who aren't even teenagers. So those things are serious, and they definitely, need to be addressed. And we want every parent out there to know that they should always take it seriously and really applaud their kids if they've come to them, to let them know something has happened. But parents really have to know how they can be aware of finding out if those things have happened. So that's a parent's job in, this digital age, is using tools like Bark is a big one that we recommend that would catch, a message that might ask for something like that. And there are a few tools like that available. So we want parents to know about them and use them as often as possible.
Basically, what you're saying is that if someone sends a sexually explicit photo of themselves, that 90% of the time it's going to get past that one person they sent it to. So if a girl sends a guy a photo, 9 out of 10 times that guy is going to share the photo with whoever, friends or classmates or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That's a really high number. I did not think it was that high.
Yeah. And it's scary when you know what the consequences of that getting out would be. And, teenagers are not known for always using logic and reason and, consequential thinking. So in a moment, somebody's life could be changed, and it causes severe mental health issues once that lapse in judgment has happened. So we would never advocate for safe sexting. We don't, that's not a terminology that belongs anywhere near minors and children. That it's not a protective phrase. So
are there people that are advocating for safe sexting? Like, is that like a...
Yeah, well, not anybody who works to protect kids, but there certainly have been a number of popular magazine or teen media outlets that have given that kind of information. So Teen Vogue, for example, or Cosmopolitan. There are lots of voices that teenagers are looking to for, lifestyle advice that have crossed that line. And for us, that is a serious offense, because it really disregards what happens to teenagers when the 90% statistic works against them. And I worked for a couple of years in a in-residence treatment facility for young women, and it was a common denominator across the board for all of the addiction issues that the residents came in with. It's something that most of them had encountered or experienced, and it compounded the life-controlling issues that they already had. So we feel really strongly that people who care about kids and young people shouldn't cross that line and shouldn't advocate for safe sexting, but really should advocate for, protecting yourself and not giving away images of yourself that will most likely be used against you.
Like, in your own experience with like the girls that you've worked with, so let's say women that are under the age of 18, what percentage of them would you say that you've come across that have experienced some form of either being pushed to uncomfortable levels to like receive images, or have been pushed in real life to do something physical that they might not want to do with a person?
I mean, I don't have a number specifically, but I can tell you there was a study in our own school district several years back that we're alarmed by, and it was like 85% of 8th graders had been asked for a nude image.
Oh my gosh.
So you can imagine what that looks like by 12th grade. So I think it's an understudied thing. I think we definitely need to be knowing more and more how often those things are happening. And Bark would tell you, they put out an annual report every year, how many messages they intercepted that were of sexual nature. And with Bark, one thing that I love and appreciate about them is if a parent were to receive a notification that their student had engaged in something like that, usually Bark will send you a snippet of the text message so you can kind of see. So, for example, if, my kid takes a picture of himself trying to bandage his toe because he accidentally dropped something on it and there's blood, I'm going to get a notification from Bark saying, hey, there was some communication about medically concerning content in, your kid's text messages, and I'm going to get that image. So I can see what they're referring to. But if it's an image that has potential nudity for a minor, it will send you a gray box that says this picture has been deleted from Bark servers because it may contain child pornography. However, it still could be on that device. And so, when a parent gets an alert like that, it's like, okay, whoa, what's happening? But that is the kind of interception that you need as a parent. You need to be able to know immediately when your kid has been put in a situation where they've been asked for something, or sometimes people will just send stuff, just unsolicited. And that story has come our way a number of times where somebody is not doing anything wrong, but somebody that they're connected to thinks it's funny or whatever and just sends something. So yeah, we want parents to know that there are tools to help them catch those things early on, because the number of kids that are experiencing it is so incredibly high.
Well, do you think that during this year with the whole lockdowns and everything, do you feel like the amount of children and minors that have been preyed upon, or children or minors put in provocative online interactions or text, conversations that are like inappropriate, like do you feel like that number has increased during these lockdowns? And when
yeah, for sure, because I think for one thing, even just the lockdown during the summer, kids weren't necessarily in school, but people aren't going about. And so you have a lot of downtime, and devices tend to be the default for, teenagers especially, but children also, if there's not, boundaries for it to be otherwise. But now that, once school got back going, we know that millions and millions of teenagers and children who have not been in school. They have been doing virtual school. And what I hear as a mom, this is not a scientifically significant data sample, but what I hear my kids' classmates talking about when they have any sort of online interaction in their classes is how much they're on their phones during class now. And a lot of them not being on camera because whatever, they maybe feel uncomfortable. And so some school districts have required it, but some haven't. So when the cameras aren't on, the kids are actually now using their phones during class time, which was not the case 1 year ago in many schools. So you had, as parents, that reprieve of during school hours, even if your kid has taken their device to school with them, and some schools are more lenient than others, if they're doing a math test, they're definitely not on Snapchat, right? So you knew that there was some structure around their day that was providing their mind to be focused on other things. And so now that kids have been home and there's been so much more screen time, of course, the opportunity is much higher for those who are looking to prey upon children. And the mental health of our students is so abysmal right now because they are spending so much time at home and not really making in real life connections. So there is a need and a hunger for any kind of connection. So they might be communicating with people that normally they wouldn't even spend time with, but it's like hurt people, like they attract each other if they're lonely and depressed and whatever. And that's just not a recipe for teenagers using boundaries with each other. So I think there's a multifaceted situation that we have happening, but I know that there is a longing to connect digitally because it's all that they have. And so the number of kids online is much, much higher. The duration of the amount of time that they're on is much higher. And if there's anyone out there with nefarious purposes, they know that and they will capitalize on it.
What do you say to parents, or to, if they, let's say they've had one of these interactions, and let's say it's not even of a sexually explicit kind, but let's say they've even had some kind of conversation with a friend or just someone that they know, and just, on online platforms where they're even talking about, very dark stuff, like even something like cutting or hurting themselves or something like that, or just really just kind of dark subject matters. How do you help parents and their children? How do you help them get past like the shame? Because I feel like there's probably, and I'm not saying that like people shouldn't, express what's going on, but I feel like there's probably something that you've come across, is that there's probably a number of young people who have parents that they love and that they care for. And, the parents, I'm sure, are trying to do their best. Maybe they're not perfect, but, the parents are trying, and they actively do care and love for their children. They want to be good parents, but they just don't know what's going on. And the kids are maybe, they feel like they feel a lot of shame about what's going on, whether it be, sexual stuff or just indulging in conversation that they shouldn't have, or just really dark subject matters or talks of like suicide and whatnot. How do you help? Because I'm sure there's probably some parents that, when they hear this, I'm sure even for them, there's probably a great amount of remorse and just probably sadness and maybe even a little bit of disgust. Like, how do you help like the parents, or how can parents and children kind of bridge that gap where a child could, be honest with their parent?
Right. I mean, a lot of people, students will say that, like, if I tell my parents what's happening, then, my phone's going to be gone, basically. And for us, again, since we focus on the technological solutions, our first approach is always helping the parents. If there's any way that they can have a stronger touch in knowing what their students are struggling with or talking about or viewing online, that's something that, we absolutely want to shore up for them. And so, that could be a number of different monitoring solutions or whatever. And we encourage parents to not freak out when their kids come to them with something. Because if your kid's coming to you, it's a big deal, and they need to know that went as well as it could have, it didn't go as badly as I thought it was going to go, and I would do it again. So we want our kids to have a strong interaction with us, and I say we because I'm in that boat as a parent of teenagers myself. That's me preaching to myself as well. Is I want to have the kind of calm response that can say, hey, I'm concerned about this. So giving them the tools that they need to even know that it's happening if their kids haven't come to them, and really equipping those parents again with, referrals to people in our community that are mental health experts that can help their kids get to the bottom of some of those root issues and what is leading to them to be experiencing or experimenting with things that are dark, or the curiosity of it, because there are just real skills that our mental health professionals bring to the table. So here in Nashville, I have a great friendship with a therapist that she's like, I do not understand all the technology stuff. I can help the family deal with, getting that kid to a place where they are they feel ready to, make steps towards healing and really giving them the tools that they need. And that's her skill. She's an expert at that. But she's like, I don't understand the technology, how to help the parents put up some fences, because it's not always, just what the kids are dealing with mentally that leads them to those dark places. Unfortunately, the way the online world works is that dark subject matter is swirling all around you when you're on social media or YouTube, and it can be very accidentally tripped upon. And so a student might not even feel vulnerable, and then they come up against that and they view something or they engage in a conversation that then, you're right, they feel shame about. So, we can go so far as letting a parent know, man, you're praising your kid for you did the right thing by telling me, or, hey, I noticed this, you're not in trouble, but I love you and I want to help you. Can we talk about it? We can absolutely do that. But then we're referring them to mental health professionals. And we're coming alongside the mental health professionals as they're helping their clients get to a place of emotional health and really understanding what the root issues. Then they're referring them back to us. And we're like, okay, now we're going to help you actually block social media if that's what the recommendation is by the counselor, or we're going to help you, keep devices off after a certain time of night so that they're not, sneaking to be in dark places online, that kind of thing. So it's really a tandem. It's like, we can't have all the solutions. We can't know all the technology stuff. We're not counselors. We want to encourage parents and come alongside them, let them know they're not alone. Even the best parents that you think, man, their kid is awesome. All parents are up against so much with this digital stuff. So we encourage, we give them the tools they need, and then we absolutely make those referrals to mental health professionals in our community.
Yeah, there probably is. I mean, I'm trying to envision what it would be like to be one of the parents in that situation, and especially if your kid is the one that's, kind of more of the predatory one or the aggressor. Like, let's say if, you have a son who's whatever, 15, and he's asking, one of his female classmates for sexual images. I mean, I imagine that, from a parent's standpoint, if they start hearing this stuff, or let's say, I don't know. I imagine that there has to be a lot of oh man, this is something I don't really want to talk about with my kid, or this is something where, I feel uncomfortable. It's to me, it seems like it's super obvious when, if your kid's 9 years old and he's being harassed or she's being harassed. I feel like that's right. That there's really no really gray area there. But yeah, as they get older, I don't know, or even if it's really dark stuff and, the parent's like, hey, you left your phone next to me, and then, you got a text, and someone texted you about this, this dark suicidal thought they had. And then the kid's like, oh, that was just a joke. We're just joking around. And yeah, I can definitely envision some parents really kind of not wanting to really believe that their kids are potentially really struggling with this right. Heavy amount of subject matter. So
yeah, I think the more parents can hear, talk to your kids, the better. And unfortunately, depending on what situations your family has gone through, some families have gone through significant trauma, not just this year, but, even in previous seasons. And so they may be feeling like, well, my kid is 16, 17, and I haven't laid that groundwork. You can talk to me about anything. So what do I do now? And, we just echo the advice and the wisdom that's come to us from so many amazing parents that are further down the road, and people who speak in wisdom into our lives, people in different generations, is it's never too late to do the right thing right now. And so, if you find yourself in that situation of, I'm learning that my kid has been, struggling, or, a perpetrator, they've done things, and it is, parents do feel like a failure, and how do I actually, take a step forward because I haven't laid that groundwork. We don't maybe have a good relationship, very much so. It's having the courage to just have calm conversations, which is not easy. And then inviting people into the process to help. for sure there is a place in your town that will operate on a sliding scale to give you some counseling tools. So that's one thing that we have learned is, a lot of people think, well, I can't afford for my kid to go to counseling, or my kid doesn't really want to go to counseling. And man, as a parent, I would be, knocking on every door you can find out who can I meet with to really get some tools. If my kid won't go, I can go and find out what do I need and what are my next steps for rebuilding some things with my child. Because chances are, if your kid has crossed any lines with another person, that inaction is not an option for you, because there is potential to be the school involved. Law enforcement could be involved if there's any sort of solicitation or nude images exchange, that kind of thing. So no parent is going to be able to bury their head in the sand and hope that it goes away. And the more you can reach out as a parent for help, even if your kid is closed off and unwilling to work at this point, then you as a parent, you seek the help that you need. Because when your kids are going through difficulties like that, parents need a lot of emotional support. And that is absolutely something I have learned and seen for myself. Is it's stressful to have, family situations blowing up. There's always other people involved. As a parent, you can feel ashamed that your kid is making these wrong choices online, and you need support as well to help you not lose it on your kid, not lose it on somebody else, but to really be as emotionally healthy as you can in order to shepherd that situation.
As a person, if you grew up without having those right kind of morals and, standards of what a parent is and what a parent isn't, if you grew up without that, then trying to be a parent yourself today seems it seems very difficult. And I spoke to a person that kind of not exactly what you do, but in a kind of a similar space, and the idea of, basically protecting kids from, these negative online interactions. And he talked quite a bit about kind of like revenge type actions that can happen. Mm-hmm. And just the conclusion that I've come to after talking to both of you guys is that this thing is really prolific. And for myself, I don't have any children. I'm in my late 20s, and I kind of feel like I was kind of a little bit of that age where, obviously technology existed, but like when I was in high school, the vast majority of people just had like flip phones. And,
right.
They're really, Facebook existed, but, it wasn't like Snapchat and Instagram today. So I feel like for myself, I was kind of in like that tweener between maybe somebody like yourself, where it was, like maybe when you were going to high school, there really wasn't, cell phones weren't really popular at all. Whereas when I was there,
we didn't even have the internet till I was in college.
Yeah. I grew up with the internet, but I also completely remember the internet when, when I was a kid, it was dial up, and right. There really wasn't, like people didn't really have data on their phones and stuff. And, you couldn't just watch YouTube and go on Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. So, right. Yeah, it's definitely something that's worrisome. And I think for a lot of parents, the only thing I could think of is, I imagine the biggest, force that's kind of allowing these type of situations to continue to devolve, whatever it may be, even if it's, like I mentioned earlier, even if it's just conversations that aren't really like beneficial, or somebody, just really talking about, hurting themselves, or, all of these issues that they have, and they don't really want to talk to their parents or like a mental health expert. I just feel like probably a lot of parents don't even know what's going on. I feel like probably a lot of them just think, oh, my kid's playing, he's just playing Call of Duty online, or, my right. daughter is just, she's just playing, or she's just going on Snapchat with her friends. And I just had to imagine that a lot of it's probably ignorance. But who knows? I don't know. Maybe some parents, maybe there is a little bit of a lack of really caring for their kids sometimes. I don't know. I guess I haven't met anybody that's explicitly
really hard.
said that.
It's almost like if you grew up and, your home didn't have any sort of rules about nutrition or, eating at the table or whatever, and then you're trying to institute, new areas for your family as a parent, it can feel very overwhelming because you're like, I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel. This is not a skill that I have. This is not something I understand. And so what we would encourage every parent, just like if you were, starting with trying to make healthy choices for your family, is like, what one thing can you do and do it consistently? So, for example, turning off the devices at a certain time every night so that your kid's not on Snapchat till 2 a.m. Like, if you could just figure out how to do that, that changes the game in your family. And so starting with those baby steps, because the internet is a million things and a lot of parents don't even realize, oh, that's connected to the internet. They'll say to me, oh, my kid doesn't have a smartphone. They just have a phone that connects to Wi-Fi. And I'm like, you can get Wi-Fi at the grocery store parking lot. Like, Wi-Fi is everywhere now. So, I think there's some of it is just like parents really not realizing, because it's not the world they live in, as far as understanding the bits of technology. And parents aren't inherently curious, so they're not looking to really explore every nuance of technology and what can it do. And this goes back to that question that I love that Matt McKee, who wrote a couple of books, talks about, kids will find out, what can this device do? What can I do with it? And parents want to know, what is this going to do for me? Is this going to make me more efficient? Is this going to help me balance my budget? Because we grew up with technology basically being productivity and a little bit of entertainment. But kids are looking to, how can this reinvent my entire experience? And they're not afraid of that. And so I think if we can just give parents, some tools to put up some boundaries in their home, then they can start. It's like, let's take all the junk food out of the pantry. Then, before you learn how to, cook a 9-course meal with, almonds and rice, let's talk about, what you can eliminate. And let's start there, because it feels completely overwhelming as parents to know how, most parents have more than one kid. So how, is each kid using technology, which could be completely different in one family. And now, not only how is each kid using the technology and what vulnerabilities are there, but how do I, as a parent, put my arms around all of that when I hate it? I hate what it does to my kids. I hate how it's affecting society, and I just want it all to go away. So it's like there's not an embracing of the role a lot until something goes wrong. And that's what tends to come our way is, not very many people are coming to me who have like their oldest child is 7 and they're saying, teach me your ways. I want to do this right from the beginning. They're like, I got time for that. I'll figure that out when my kids are a little bit older. And they come to us when something has blown up and they need to kind of do some damage control. So yes, it is overwhelming to be a parent in this age, but we don't help ourselves when we don't start kind of at the beginning, just with some of the basics. So we constantly are, helping parents just understand like what basic foundation can you start with your family. So for example, any devices that your kids use, in their preschool years, they don't wake up that device on their own. Mom and dad have a passcode or a thumbprint or something like that. This is not theirs. It's like you're just building these expectations of my parents are super involved in the technology in my home. And eventually parents pass off those, sectors of independence to their kids with technology. But if your kid's bringing home a new iPhone for Christmas and you haven't thought of like, oh, how am I going to protect that? You have only a short window of time to be able to put some things on it before it has completely the horses out of the barn. And you can go back retroactively and start to put parameters, and they're really just boundaries in place. And we would encourage parents to always reconsider that. But it is so much easier if you can do it from the beginning. And then your kid's not going, it's like the difference of, my kid's going to go to one store, Target, by themselves. I know where they are. I know generally what's in there and what mishaps could happen versus I'm sending my kid to the Mall of America and they could have, access to a lot more stuff and a lot more people, and just giving those boundaries so that their access grows with their maturity. And then it's a lot easier for parents to manage. So any parents out there, kids who are like preteens and younger, this is your moment. This is your time. Make sure that you are investigating what boundaries you can put in place in your home's technology so that you can manage what they have access to before they become teenagers and the access suddenly is sort of out of your control at some point.
Well, definitely, Sarah. I wanna thank you for your time coming on today. How can we keep up with the work that you're doing, and where do we go for maybe updates or resources that you guys have produced?
Sure. So we have many of them on our website, parentswhofight.com, and we're also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Parents Who Fight. And really, one of our main joys in life is pushing out to parents all the great content that nonprofits and people who are working on online safety full-time are doing a lot of really heavy lifting in this space. So we want to deliver those resources to parents quickly. So a lot of that's going to be on social media, talking about, new trends or updates that are happening in apps. So I would say social media is the place for the more immediate resources that we're coming across, and technology moves fast. And then our website has more of the kind of timeless content about, how you can really build some of it in your home.
Well, perfect. All right. Well, definitely. Well, thank you again so much, Sarah. I appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.